Advertising has the potential to reach your best customers and grow your brand's awareness, product sales, and more. If you can only reach real, actual customers and not bots that are stealing traffic and dollars from advertisers every day. Welcome to One Amazing Thing About Anura. Today we're talking with Rich Kahn, co founder and CEO at Anura, and he's going to be sharing one amazing thing about their platform with us today. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, looking forward to taking a look in a second here. But before we do, why don't you give a little background on you and your role at Anura?
Background on me. Wow, I've been a developer since age 9, got published when I was 12, love development, worked my way through college selling. So internet sales and tech was always my direction. Real quick, about 20 something years ago, back in 2003, my wife and I started an ad network, had some issues with traffic, wanted to find an ad fraud solution to bolt on and call it a day. Unfortunately, the first ad fraud solution didn't roll out until 2008. So I built my own. Years of testing and working, clients have been asking, if not begging, to use it outside of our platform. Did some testing, found out it made sense, and we did it.
Nice, nice. Love it. Well, yeah. So let's why don't you walk us through a little bit about what we're going to see today, who's the audience for it, and why is it important to them?
Sure. Well, a lot of times what'll happen is when somebody's, they don't realize they have a fraud problem, right? And I try to frame the talk as this. In 2024, which we have data for, we don't have 2025 data yet, it's still coming in. In 2024, as a global society, we spent over $700 billion in digital marketing. It's the first year where we actually exceeded traditional marketing. Of that, our conservative estimate says that 140 billion was stolen by fraudsters. So it's not a question anymore of if you have fraud, it's a question of how much fraud you have. So a lot of times when we get somebody on the phone and they're having weird things going on their site, they're getting weird forms being filled out, calling people who didn't fill out forms, chargebacks, people saying they never used a card. It's usually a sign of fraud. And we try to get to those people because we know it can solve that problem. So the first thing we want to do is a traffic quality audit, right? We want to find out what's going on their site. And we do this for free. The goal is to understand what's going on. Is it a problem that we can solve? Because they may have some other problem going on. Maybe they're buying incentivized traffic or they're buying stuff that has really no intent of making purchases. But we want to identify that, hey, this is definitely, in fact, a fraud problem. And pretty much everybody we test, they have a fraud problem. It's that
Right.
rampant. So this
Yeah.
dashboard is what we do is when we do a free audit, we give somebody a little piece of code. They pop on their site. It starts collecting all this data. And then we can do an assessment on their site and say, this is how much fraud we're identifying. And just so we're on the same terminology, fraud and IVT are two synonymous terms. IVT is invalid traffic. I remember talking on stage with a client and he didn't want me to say the word fraud because he didn't want to think, hey, before using Anora, I had fraud.
Yeah.
So we actually, for the conversation, we changed it up to non-consumer, somebody who's not going to make a purchase.
Nice.
But the actual
Accurate.
industry, yeah, the actual industry term for it is invalid traffic, IVT. So that's what we're going to show you. We're going to show you basically, I just going to just touch on the dashboard, not to bore you with details because this thing does so much. I could spend hours going through all the features and stuff like that. But we're just going to do a high level view just to understand what a traffic audit would look like if one was done on your site.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and definitely we'll have links in the show notes to if people want to check out more. So yeah, why don't you share your screen?
All right. So when somebody logs into their account, this is the first screen that they look at. And what I've done is I switched back to a February view because there's a little bit more data. This is basically a demo count, randomized data that we load into the system just so we can actually demonstrate the product for clients, when we're doing a demo. But usually what happens is we do the traffic audit with a client, we give them code, they put it on their page, and next thing you know, this starts filling out so we can sit down and find out. And this is right here. This is the key number, the IVT rate. How much traffic is real, valid traffic, and how much is invalid traffic? That's the thing that we want to look at. On average, this is a high number, just again, because it's demo data. It's just designed to show different things in the system. But typically, our average fraud find is 25%. We'll identify 25% of their traffic as fraudulent. So let's say you got a client out there spending $100,000 a month. They're already losing $25,000 a month to fraud. So now, usually the first question everyone says is, well, where's it coming from? So without, like I said, going crazy in details, we can actually drill down and look at all the sources of traffic that they have and see the bad rate, which is 100% fraud. We see warning rate, which is stuff you want to look at, and we can break it down really granular. We've got all kinds of like visualization charts and graphs that we can look at. Uh, we got all kinds of metrics to identify where it's coming from. And like I said, this gets pretty intense, but really the two big questions is how much do I have and where is it coming from? And those are answered very quickly on our dashboard. So that's just a quick synopsis of how that works.
Yeah, yeah, love it. So, yeah, I mean, and I mean, to me, just 25%, whatever your ad budget is, and whether it's thousands or millions of dollars, like that's a significant amount. So, I guess one question for you, what's a typical next step after someone sees, okay, I've got 25% fraud, like what's a next step for them?
Yeah. So the next step is we talk about moving forward. If you decided to license our product, we're obviously in business to make money.
Yeah,
Our job is to help them mitigate that and get that down to as close to zero as possible. Nothing is ever going to be zero, but there's all kinds of features that we have. Like we can do real time blocking. So let's say you have somebody going to charge a credit card on your e-commerce site and we identify them as fraud. We can actually give you code that'll prevent them from putting that credit card
mm,
through the system. So it prevents the chargebacks, prevents, having an escalated amount of chargeback ratios and all that stuff that comes with it. Let's
yeah,
say you're generating leads on your site for your sales team. Well, you don't want Mickey Mouse being entered into your system and filling up databases. You don't want Greg's real information being filled out if he didn't fill out a form because that creates TCPA issues, that creates brand reputation issues. I mean, it just creates all kinds of issues. We can stop that from happening. So we can do a lot of stuff in real time, but ultimately, the initial goal for us is to help them stop spending money on an audience that's never going to purchase for your product, get rid of as much of that, take that, reinvest it back into an audience that's going to convert and significantly raise your ROAS. That's
yeah,
what we're trying to accomplish. And when companies actually sit down and say, okay, it's just not a number on a screen, they start following our advice. And typically our advice initially is, well, you got 25%. Let's come up with a goal to cut that in half in 90 days.
yeah, yeah.
Once you cut a 25% fraud rate in half, they feel the difference.
I
And
can
that's when it
imagine.
cements them in as a client. Like that's when they're like clients for life. Once they realize it actually works and it actually feeling the bottom line, then it becomes almost like a visitor firewall for their network. Like they must have this in place. We've had clients in the past, like, you know what, we've been working with you guys, our fraud rate's under 3%, everything's looking good, blah, blah, blah. We're fine. They shut us off and like 2 days later they call us back in a panic. We need to get you guys back on it. Because they realize, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, yeah.
We help you mitigate it, but unmitigated, it's still going to affect your network. So,
Well, and to your point, I mean, it's great to be able to see the numbers and stuff, but you're also doing preventative things. Again, dashboards are amazing, but you need to be able to take the actions to further prevent, which you're also doing. So I think the fact that it does both, it not only gives the visibility, but it actually enables them to have less fraud and frankly spend more dollars in good ways that are driving the business. To your point, if they're able to quickly see returns, I can only imagine. I mean, again, a lot of the enterprise customers out there, spending millions and millions of dollars on advertising. We're talking a lot more than $25,000, a month, year, whatever the case may be. I mean, they've got to be able to feel that. To your point, so
my God, yeah, we have. And sometimes we'll get a client that comes up to us. They've identified that it's fraud. So they do, look up fraud. We show up all the time. They find us, they come to us, and they literally tell us the sky is falling. Like, I lost two clients. I've got clients complaining. We're about to, if this continues, within the next 6 months, we're going to be out of business. What's going on? And we log in, we put the code on the page, we do the traffic quality assessment, and boom, they got like 60, 70% fraud. I'm like, no wonder you're losing your clients. Let's figure out where's it coming from. And I'm thinking of an example. Somebody had 65% fraud. We were able to cut it in half within a week. It was that quick. Either some low hanging fruit we were able to knock out really quick. Now, again, 30%, 35% fraud still up there. And we wanted to continue working that. But we were able to make a big impact, slow the complaints, get them happy, and continue to work with them. And they've been with us for years now. I mean,
yeah,
it's
I mean,
amazing the
two
difference.
thirds of your ad budget essentially, being thrown down the drain or whatever. Like that's any cut to that is an amazing lift.
And here's an interesting point with that, real quick. I always tell clients like, okay, we found 25% fraud, right? That's our average fine. What number does your company shut down? 100%. If you had 100% fraud coming in, you'd be out of business, right? We
Yeah,
we know that, but Is there a number between 25% where you are today and 100%? If this continues to grow, at what point do you shut down? And I also asked the same question about the entire internet industry. The internet digital marketing industry is at about a 20, I say 22% based on my original numbers. At what percentage of fraud does it eventually just shut down the whole thing?
Yeah.
This happened with the dot-com bubble burst back in 2000. Display advertising was on fire. If you wanted to get an ad out on the network, it was like a 6-month waiting list, $80 CPMs. I mean, it was really crazy. And then people realized, I'm spending all this money, I'm not getting any benefit. There's no back end conversion data, there's no back end benefit. And everyone just shut off at the same time. And then we all know in April of 2000, that whole dot-com bubble burst because of fraud.
Yeah, yeah, wow, and that's less reported, I think, than just the general, like, the bubble bursting in itself, but
Yeah.
that there was so much. Yeah, yeah, wow. It's great. Well, Rich, great to talk with you. Definitely lots more to check out with Anura. If people wanna learn more, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is to go to anura.io, anura.io, though I know that'll be in the show notes. We have great information online if they want to read more about it, or sign up and get a free traffic quality assessment. Find out where you are today so that you can do something about it proactively.
Yeah, love it. Well, again, I'd like to thank Rich Kahn, co-founder and CEO of Anura, for joining the show. You can learn more about Rich and Anura by following the links in the show notes.